Today, our topic is Can't We All Just Get Along? Which is a catchy title page, and you don't need to be writing this down. We've been talking about living things in their environment. And remember, the study of ecology is not only living things in their environment, but how they interact. We've already talked about some interactions. We've talked about producer-consumer, where the plants produce energy, consumers use energy. Consumers consume the energy the plants produce. Actually, the plants produce energy from the sun. We're going to talk more about that later. Our topic really is something called symbiosis. Symbiosis. Definition. Okay? Sym means together. Biosis is the act of living. So we have the act of living together. The definition, two or more different kinds of organisms that live together in a feeding relationship. Two or more different kinds of organisms that live together in a feeding relationship. Symbiosis. This is not a predator-prey relationship. Predator-prey don't live together. Therefore, it's not symbiosis. It's a really important idea. Okay? Don't live together, therefore not symbiosis. We're talking about things that live in the same, basically, essentially occupy the same place in the ecosystem. Type 1, mutualism. Mutualism. Mutualism is a relationship that benefits both organisms. We often write it as plus, plus, or win-win. Here we have a clownfish. We all know the clownfish because back when you were little, you watched Finding Nemo. And clownfishes live in anemones. I don't know why I wrote Nemo, I meant to write clownfish. Clownfish live in an anemone. The anemone is poisonous tentacles. Poison does not affect the clownfish, but it keeps predators away. And the clownfish cleans the anemone, so they both benefit. Plus for the clownfish, plus for the anemone. Number 2, something called commensalism. This one's a little bit harder to define. It's when one organism is helped and the other organism is neither helped nor hurt. We often write that as plus 0. Okay? Helped, not really helped nor hurt. Here we have a shark. Swimming alongside of the shark is a fish called a remora. Remoras are really, really cool. They will live on their own. They're predators, but they have a little suction cup thing on the top of their head that allows them to stick to a shark. As far as we can tell, the shark is neither helped nor hurt. The remora eats all the scraps that a shark eats. It's kind of like the shark's little buddy. We don't really know why it's there. We don't really know why sharks and whales allow remoras to hang out with them, but they do. Third is called parasitism. Parasitism. In parasitism, one organism called the host is hurt, and yes, you should know that, it's the host, and the parasite is helped. We would write that as a plus-minus relationship. Now, the other thing you should understand is how parasites work, their life cycle. And I'm going to go through this diagram here with you. Okay, let's start with this is about a tapeworm. Okay, tapeworm. Now, in humans, tapeworm isn't such a big deal anymore mostly because we have taken very good care of ourselves as far as meat goes. Here in, I should say, here in America and in other developed countries, tapeworms aren't a problem so much anymore. Maybe your dog, however, has had a tapeworm, or a cat, or something like that. Okay? So let's start with what's called the reservoir, and we're going to talk about this again later. Organism for a tapeworm would be something like a cow or a pig or something like that, where they eat the eggs of a tapeworm. Now, how do they do that? Well, tapeworms leave their eggs in feces, which would be poop from an organism. Let's say your dog has a tapeworm and takes a dump in the grass. The poo decomposes, but the tapeworm eggs stay behind. And they'll stay behind for years until they maybe get eaten by a pig. And inside of the pig, the eggs come out of their shell, if you will, and they form these little microscopic worms. Those worms infect a pig's muscle. Now, here's why it's not such a problem here in America, is that we have grade A beef and pork and stuff like that, where we've checked them for things like this. But you can't catch them all. And so these larvae form cysts in the muscle tissue. In other words, what happens is these little worms, these little tiny baby worms, curl up in a ball and form a little shell, around themselves. And so the reason they do that is so that when you eat them, or if something would eat the pig, that protects them, and they can stay there for years. And so we make our hot dog out of pig, not necessarily grade A meat. And you don't cook your hot dog. Now, they do try to take care of that and make sure that the hot dogs are not infected with anything. But one reason never to eat an uncooked hot dog is right here. So if you don't cook the hot dog, if you cook your meat, you kill the larvae. If you don't cook your meat, eat it down into your stomach and intestines, and once these tapeworm cysts get in there, they do what's called exist. They come out of their cyst because they're in a nice, warm, acidic environment, and they start to grow. And the tapeworm has these little suction cups on its head that enable it to stick to your intestine, and then they grow 8 to 11 feet long. And this is a head that does the eating, and then all of this is egg sacs. So it'll break off pieces of its tail, and pieces of its tail will go out in your poo. Now, you usually defecate into a toilet, so that would end the life of the tapeworm. If you were to do it in the grass somewhere, though, those tapeworm eggs could be eaten by an organism and start this whole thing all over again. Now, the problem with a tapeworm is, what it does is it takes the food you eat. So you eat normally, but you don't get all the nutrients because the tapeworm takes a lot of them. That's what a parasite does, is it takes stuff from the host. It doesn't want to kill the host because that would kill the tapeworm. Now, back in the day, they used to get rid of tapeworms. You would go to the doctor, and you'd say, man, I don't feel too good. And the doctor would do some tests and say, I think you've got a tapeworm. Okay, here's how you get rid of it. Don't eat for a couple days. So you go home and you starve yourself for a couple days. If you starve yourself, you're starving the tapeworm. And then you would go back, and the doctor would have you open your mouth and place between your teeth a rotten piece of meat. So you got a rotten piece of meat between your teeth, and the tapeworm, being very hungry, smells that and literally can crawl its way out, and grab onto that rotten piece of meat. And then the doc would literally pull the tapeworm out that way, which is very pleasant. So, parasitism. So our 3 forms of Symbiosis are mutualism, plus plus, commensalism, and parasitism plus minus.